Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Meetinghouse of Provincetown, where we affirm the worth and dignity of every person and where we support each other on our spiritual search for truth and meaning. My name is Reverend Kate Wilkinson, and I am so glad that you have joined us this morning. Really, I am so glad. I have faces to preach to, even if I just get your eyes. I've missed your eyes. And I thank you also to those of you joining us through our live stream. How lucky are we that we have this amazing technology to keep us feeling connected. And such a great tech crew. Thank you, Sean, who is running our live stream today. Before we begin our worship service, I have just a few announcements to share with you. It is useful to us if you pre-register for Sunday services, if you know that you're coming, so that your name is on a list at the door that can be quickly checked off. This is in case we ever need to do any contact tracing. You can register at the door, but it just takes a little longer to write down your name and phone number, and sometimes we have a little bit of a bottleneck in the welcome area. So if you're able to pre-register each week using the link on our website, that really helps us. The most needed item for our food pantry at the moment is Boost or Ensure, you know, those little bottles of protein drinks, and also boxed soups and broths. We're still not putting out anything in a can during this cold weather, so boxed and bagged items are best. Thank you so much. And lastly, we hope that you know about the Lily House, a community home for living and dying. We've had Don Walsh here as a guest speaker and workshop leader a few times in the past. Well, Lily House finally has found a physical home at 40 Pocahontas Road in Wellfleet. And they are having an open house on Friday, March 4th from 3 to 6 p.m. And you are all invited. Let's join now in affirming our community's covenant. You can repeat each line after me. Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
Love is the spirit of this meeting house.
This is our great covenant.
This is our great covenant.
To dwell together in peace.
To dwell together in peace.
To seek the truth in love.
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another.
And to help one another.
As we begin our worship service this morning, I want to acknowledge a death in our UU Meetinghouse family. Ann McAdam, a longtime and cherished member of our community, passed away very early Friday morning. Ann hadn't been able to attend services here in quite some time because of her health, but she was such an important part of our congregation for so many reasons. Please keep Ann's daughter Heather in your prayers this week. We will be planning a memorial service for the end of May, close to what would have been Ann's 92nd birthday. Much love to all of you who knew Ann. I light this memorial candle in her honor this morning. And at this time, I invite Char to light our chalice. As she lights our chalice here in the sanctuary, we invite those of you joining us from home to light a candle wherever you are. In that way, we can feel connected, even while we are apart.
chalice lighting, please.
The chalice lighting today are the words of Kristen L. Harper from her Breath of Life Is Not Mine Alone. I do not wish to breathe another breath if it is not shared with others. The breath of life is not mine alone. I brought myself to be with you here, hoping that by inhaling the compassion, the courage, the hope found here, I can exhale the fear, the selfishness, the separateness I keep so close to my skin. I cannot live another moment, at least not one of joy, unless you and I find our oneness somewhere among each other, somewhere between the noise, somewhere within the silence of the next breath.
Thank you. Please join me now in a spirit of meditation and prayer. If you have a joy or a sorrow on your heart this morning, you are welcome to light a silent candle during the prayer or at any time during the service at the table to the right of the pulpit. And there is a journal there to record your thoughts and prayers. I know our hearts are aching this week for those in Ukraine. We are holding so much, both worldwide and closer to home. Our prayer this morning is called Each Breath by Leif Seligman. We pause in the stillness to rest for a moment, to quiet ourselves so that we can feel what stirs within us. Each breath draws us closer to the pulse of life, and with each exhalation, we make room for something new. May we find in this gathering the comfort of those who care. May we encounter patience along our growing edges and compassion in our most tender spots. Here, may we find the inspiration and encouragement we need to face our challenges and nurture ourselves. And in the presence of suffering across the globe, may we redouble our efforts to practice kindness where we are, with the hope that the light of our actions travels like the light of faraway stars. May our gestures of compassion and generosity seed possibility. May we travel humbly with one another, choosing reconciliation over resentment as we try to live right-sized. When life presses in and shifts us off balance, when pain assails us, when frustration mounts, may the rhythm of our breath steady us and bring us back to a place of gratitude. Let us end this time of prayer and meditation by breathing together. I invite you to take some long, slow breaths with me. I will count to 5 for the inhale and to 6 on the exhale. If you can, breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. As you inhale, fill your whole belly and rib cage. And remember to take the full 6 seconds on that exhale. You can close your eyes if you want to. Breathing in, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Our reading today is from the words of Nancy Schaefer, called In the Beginning, from her Instructions in Joy. Kate, different Kate, is teaching the kids about dinosaur air. The air you breathe, that air you have inside you every time you take a breath, that's dinosaur air, she says. Dinosaurs breathed it. The kids' eyes are wide open. They take a deep gulp of air just to have more dinosaur air inside them. The air we have is all the air we will ever have, Kate says. So we have to take good care of it. The kids gulp a little less. Consider the air already inside. Kate tells more. Actually, she says, we're all cousins. The kids look at each other, disbelieving, believing. You? We? All of us? Kate says, way, way back, we began as cousins, way back in the beginning. The kids whoop and clap each other on the back for the rest of the day, and they savor the air, and they call each other cousin.
Thank you. Now is the time in our service where we take a collection for the ongoing support of this meeting house and our shared ministry. As we enjoy a musical reflection, we welcome your donations here in the sanctuary or online through PayPal or Venmo. You can find that information on our website, uumh.org. On and off site, your offerings will now be gratefully received. I'm here this morning to tell you about the most important spiritual tool at our disposal. It's this. You got that? I didn't forget what I was saying. I was showing you the most important spiritual tool. I was demonstrating. I'll do it again. You got it this time?
Yeah.
What did I do? I took a breath. The most important thing we can do for our spiritual health. I mean, it's pretty important for our physical health too. If we don't breathe, we die. But in terms of our spiritual health, it is the breath that is at the very center of our practice. When we are overwhelmed or filled with anxiety, what can calm us down, make us feel more centered, more grounded? A nice slow breath. When we are distracted and have monkey mind and we are not being fully present at all, what can bring us back to mindfulness, to this moment, counting the breath? When we are emotionally activated, hooked, triggered, angry, about to say something that we may later regret, what can stop us from following that instinct? Taking a breath, pausing before we respond. That one well-timed breath is all that stands between us and the truly enlightened ones. It's just harder than it sounds to master. That most important spiritual tool, it's right there, but also so not what we reach for most of the time. And the breath is a tricky subject right now, right? It's the key to enlightenment. It's what keeps us alive. But then it's also what we most fear right now too, isn't it? It's why we're wearing masks. Our breath, the very thing we depend on to live, is also what's transmitting this virus. Suddenly the breath of our friends, which we've never given a thought to in our whole lives, except that one time that we had to share a hotel room and we didn't realize how bad their snoring was. Suddenly the breath of our friends is something that we distrust, worry about, fear. The breath of strangers, our own breath. What if we pass this virus on to someone else? Hopefully we are at the tail end of this daily worry, but this is kind of an interesting time to be focusing on the breath as a spiritual tool. Talking about breathing and particularly giving advice around breathing and the breath is also hard because not everyone breathes in the same way, actually. I mean, my sister breathes through a tracheostomy in her neck after surviving throat cancer. Some of us in this room have survived lung cancer or other health issues that have decreased our lung capacity. Some of us have asthma and struggle to breathe. This is a huge environmental justice issue, especially in communities of color, where pollutants, highways, and bus depots are more likely to be located. Whole communities struggling to breathe. Some of us are on oxygen, which we depend on to breathe. That power outage last month was a whole lot scarier for those needing to plug in an oxygen concentrator. So we're talking about breath today, but it's not as straightforward a subject as you'd think at first. To begin, let's time travel for a few minutes, shall we? If you were to travel back in time, about 5,000 years, to the borders of what is now Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northwest India, you'd see sand, rocky mountains, dusty trees, red soil, and wide open plains. The same landscape that now covers most of the Middle East. But you'd also find something else. 5 million people living in cities of baked brick tract houses, roads meticulously constructed in geometric patterns, and children playing with copper, bronze, and tin toys. Between the cul-de-sacs, you'd see public bathing pools with running water and toilets piped to complex sanitation systems. In the marketplace, you'd see tradespeople measuring goods with weights and standardized rulers, sculptors carving elaborate figures into stone, and ceramists throwing pots and tablets. This was the Indus-Sarasvati civilization, named after the 2 rivers that flowed through the valley. The Indus-Sarasvati was the largest and most advanced of ancient human civilizations. As far as it is known, the Indus Valley had no churches or temples. The people who lived there produced no praying sculptures, no iconography. Palaces, castles, and imposing government buildings didn't exist. There was perhaps no belief in the gods. But the people here believed in the transformative power of breathing. A seal engraving unearthed there in the 1920s depicts a man in an unmistakable pose. He's sitting erect with his arms outstretched and hands placed on his knees. His legs are crossed and the soles of his feet are joined. His belly is filled with air as he consciously inhales. Several other unearthed figures share the same posture. These artifacts are the first documented yogic postures in human history, which makes sense. The Indus Valley was the birthplace of yoga. Mystical and religious texts called the Vedas contain the earliest known documentation of yoga instruction. They are the earliest lessons on breathing. Over the next few thousand years, the ancient breathing methods spread through India, China, and beyond. One passage from a Yoga Sutra reads, "When a wave comes, it washes you and runs up the beach. Then the wave turns and recedes over you, going back to the ocean. This is like the breath, which exhales, transitions, inhales, transitions, and then starts the process again." This history is told in a book published in 2020 called Breath, The New Science of a Lost Art by James Nestor. It's a fascinating dive into a subject that most of us take for granted every moment of every day, breathing. Nestor explores science, religion, medicine, athletics, and evolution in his obsessive investigation of breathing. His conclusion? We're doing it wrong. Now, how can that be? I mean, if we're alive, I think we're breathing well enough, right? But Nestor says no. Our capacity to breathe has changed through the long processes of human evolution, he says, and the way we breathe has gotten markedly worse since the dawn of the industrial age. 90% of us are breathing incorrectly, and this failure is either causing or aggravating a laundry list of chronic diseases. Luckily, he has some recommendations for us. First, breathe through your nose. Breathing through the nose, he claims, can trigger hormones and chemicals that lower blood pressure and ease digestion, can regulate our heart rate, open up the vessels in our toes, and store memories. This is old wisdom. Around 1500 BCE, the Ebers Papyrus, one of the oldest medical texts ever discovered, offered a description of how the nostrils were supposed to feed air to the heart and lungs, not the mouth. 1,000 years later, the book of Genesis described how the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life. And man became a living soul. A Chinese Taoist text from the 8th century noted that the nose was the heavenly door and that breath must be taken in through it. Never do otherwise, the text warned, for breathing would be in danger and illness would set in. If you can, breathe through your nose, not your mouth. Second, breathe less, meaning take more time with your breaths. The perfect breath is 5.5 second inhales and 5.5 second exhales. Our quick, shallow breathing is doing us no favors, Nestor says. Slowing down calms our nervous system, lowers our heart rate and blood pressure. Instead of operating in a constant fight or flight response, we can feel more centered and less reactive. I've taken to trying these slow, perfect breaths whenever I'm waiting for something. The grocery store line, the traffic jam. It really does transform the moment. And even if we're not breathing the perfect breath all day long, even just those stolen moments can help, Nestor assures us. Open up any book or website about yoga, and chances are you'll see the word prana, which translates to life force or vital energy. The concept of prana was first documented in India and China about 3,000 years ago and became the bedrock of medicine. The Chinese called it qi and believed the body contained channels that functioned like prana power lines connecting organs and tissues. The Japanese had their own name for prana, ki, as did the Greeks, pneuma, Hebrews, ruach, and Iroquois, or Brenda. Different names, same premise. The more prana something has, the more alive it is. Over the millennia, these cultures developed hundreds, thousands of methods to maintain a steady flow of prana. They created acupuncture to open up prana channels and yoga postures to awaken and distribute energy. Spicy foods contained large doses of prana, which is why traditional Indian and Chinese diets are often hot. But the most powerful technique was to inhale prana, to breathe. Breathing techniques were so fundamental to prana that qi and ruach and other ancient terms for energy are often translated as breath. When we breathe, we expand our life force. As basic as this sounds, Nestor says, full inhalations and exhalations are seldom practiced. Most of us engage only a small fraction of our total lung capacity with each breath. One of the first steps in healthy breathing is to extend these breaths, to move the diaphragm up and down a bit more, to get stale air out of us before taking new air in. So breathe less, but more fully. And third, breathe with intention. Up to 80% of office workers suffer from something called continuous partial attention, Nestor says. We'll scan our email, write something down, check Twitter, do it all over again. never really focusing on any specific task. I'm not going to ask you to raise your hands if this sounds familiar. In this state of perpetual distraction, breathing becomes shallow and erratic. Sometimes we don't breathe at all for a half minute or longer. The habit, also known as email apnea, can contribute to the same maladies as sleep apnea. So breathe with intention. And a last word on slow breathing. It goes by another name: prayer. When Buddhist monks chant Om Mani Padme Hum, each spoken phrase lasts 6 seconds, with 6 seconds to inhale before the chant starts again. The traditional chant of Om, the sacred sound of the universe, takes 6 seconds to sing, with a pause of about 6 seconds to inhale. The Sata Nama chant also takes 6 seconds to vocalize, followed by 6 seconds to inhale. Japanese, African, Hawaiian, Native American, Buddhist, Taoist, Christian, these cultures and religions all have somehow developed prayer techniques requiring the same breathing patterns. And they all benefit from the same calming effect. In 2001, researchers at the University of Pavia in Italy covered volunteers with sensors to measure blood flow, heart rate, and nervous system feedback. And then they had them recite a Buddhist mantra, as well as the original Latin version of the Rosary. They were stunned to find that the average number of breaths for each cycle was almost exactly identical. Just a bit quicker than the pace of the Hindu, Taoist, and Native American prayers, 5.5 breaths a minute. But what was even more stunning was what breathing like this did to the subjects. Whenever they followed this slow breathing pattern, blood flow to the brain increased, and the functions of the heart, circulation, and nervous system all coordinated. The moment the subjects returned to spontaneous breathing or talking, their hearts would beat a little more erratically, and the integration of those systems would fall apart. A decade later, a similar experiment was done in New York with patients suffering from anxiety. As their breathing slowed, their bodily systems changed. It turned out that the most efficient breathing rhythm occurred when both the length of the respirations and the total breaths per minute were locked into a spooky symmetry. 5.5 second inhales, followed by 5.5 second exhales. The same pattern as the Rosary. The results were profound even when practiced for just 5 to 10 minutes a day. We believe that the Rosary may have partly evolved because it synchronized with the inherent cardiovascular rhythms, the Pavia researchers wrote, and thus gave a feeling of well-being and perhaps an increased responsiveness to the religious message. In other words, prayer heals, especially when it is practiced at 5.5 breaths a minute. Number 1, breathe through your nose. Number 2, breathe less, but more fully. Number 3, breathe with intention. Number 4, breathe as a prayer. If the Ave Maria doesn't work for you, if you don't love to meditate, if you don't connect to prayer, try this. As you take a full inhale through your nose, say slowly to yourself, when I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. As you exhale fully through your mouth, think, when I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. Follows the same mystical rhythm. Amen, and blessed be. It has become our practice to pose a question based on the theme of the service each week. It can be a topic of sharing at your dinner table tonight or with friends during the week. If you'd like to delve deeper into this topic, please join us for our midweek coffee hour, Tuesdays at 5. Let us know if you need that link. Here's our question for this week. What helps you to slow down? Where and when do you breathe most deeply? What helps you to slow down? Where and when do you breathe most deeply? Thank you for joining us this morning. Thank you for joining us this morning. Go in peace.